Hi, my name's Amanda, and I'm a type 1 diabetic. I am not a certified nurse or a doctor. If you have questions about your own diabetes management, please contact your physician. Hi, diabetes. I'm here today to talk to you about my insulin pump and how it works and how most insulin pumps function. I've had some questions after a few of my other videos, and I figured I'd explain it a little bit better. Okay, so first of all, insulin. The insulin that goes inside of an insulin pump is called a rapid acting or fast acting insulin. I currently use Humalog. I also have used Novolog. They're basically the same thing, a little bit different. Some people say that they notice a huge difference between the two of them. I personally do not. Fast-acting insulin is the closest to human insulin. Any non-diabetic, their insulin is also fast-acting insulin. The insulin that's given over a 24-hour period would be called a basal insulin or your base rate insulin. This is also something that occurs in non-diabetics. Your pancreas slowly throughout the day releases small amounts of insulin, and then when you eat, you're given a bolus insulin for carbohydrates and sugars. So I have a basal rate, which is programmed a certain amount. It can change per user, it can change per hour. You can put temporary basals. If you're exercising, you can turn your basals off if you're going low. It's really customizable. A bolus would be for when I eat. I would enter in a certain amount of carbohydrates, and depending on what meal it is, it would give me a ratio. Say like breakfast, I have a ratio of 1 unit per 8 carbs, and this does all of the calculations for me. I don't have to use a calculator. I did that when I was first diagnosed on injections. There's also correction boluses, or a ISF, insulin sensitivity factor. If you're running high and you want to lower your blood sugar, say I'm 160 and then I want to be 180 or 130, I would take 1 unit because my ISF ratio is 1 unit per 30 milligrams per deciliter that I want to go down. Let's see. It's typical for a diabetic to need less insulin over the nighttime when you're not as active and not eating, and then to need much more in the morning. When you wake up, your body naturally releases cortisol. It's a hormone that can cause insulin resistance, and so in the morning, even if I don't eat breakfast, I have to take 4 to 5 units just to correct my blood sugar from going up. This is called a dawn phenomenon. Let's go ahead and get this sucker filled up. So my tubing has already fallen off, but I would unscrew the cartridge cap. The battery cap is right there. These take regular AA batteries. Lithium is better, they last longer. There's a setting in the menu if you use lithium batteries versus alkaline batteries. I've always used alkaline just because they're cheaper. My cartridge is stuck in there. 1 second. Pump hack. When in doubt, pry it out. Okay, so here's a sort of empty cartridge. I had like 17 units left, and my baby went down for a nap and was like, oh, this is when I'm going to do my video. So here's an empty cartridge. The tubing would have gotten screwed onto that. This is called a lure lock system. So I'm going to go into my menu. Oh, yeah, pump not primed because there's no insulin in it. Into my menu and go all the way down to prime rewind. I want to go up and I want to press rewind. Go rewind. It vibrates twice. And then you hear that iconic insulin pump noise. There's a little piston, you see that down in there? Back in there, that twists, and it's rewinding all the way to the back of the insulin pump so that we have room to load our cartridge. So while that's doing that, Here is an Animas 2 milliliter cartridge. It's got the, or reservoir, they're also called. It's already got the needle and plunger attachment inside of the bag. Take the needle, screw that on, take the plunger, clip that in, give it a nice 1-2, make sure that the plunger isn't going to be stuck. Oh, it's done rewinding. Because that's no good when the plunger gets stuck and you've got to take it all out and redo everything again. Then you take your insulin vial. I like to put mine in these little koozies. These are available on Amazon for about $8. I'll put a link in the description below. They keep them from breaking. They can also keep them cool. Oh, this one's out too. Let me go grab another vial. Okay, we're back. Fresh vial of Humalog. Take the cap off of it. It's always good to get an alcohol swab and clean the top of it since you are inserting a needle through there. You know, let's not contaminate our precious life water. Okay, filling the cartridge. You make sure that the syringe is full of air. Stick that right down in there. Fill the vial with air. Tip it over. And put as much as you need. Typically, they say insulin's good in the insulin pump for 2 to 3 days, which kind of works because you're supposed to replace your reservoir and your tubing and your sites every 2 to 3 days also. I fill it all the way up because I've got a pretty hefty insulin requirements. Not more than usual, but there's a big air bubble in there. I've been told you're not supposed to do this, but I always have. I push the air back into the vial and then pull out as much insulin as I can to get this as full as possible. I guess the idea is the air going through the insulin can make it expire quicker. I've never had an issue with it. And just take that right out. Put that back in my little koozie. I remember in my diabetes education, I was told not to flick the air bubbles in these syringes. You can see how there's kind of a little, I don't know, on the bottom of the syringe, there's kind of a little finger that pokes up in the middle there. It's to make it so that there's less air bubbles, and if you go like this, kind of spinning around, all the air bubbles are supposed to go to the top. Push it all out. Cap that needle. That needle gets thrown away. We're not using that needle today. Now, I've been told recently online not to put cold insulin inside of an insulin pump. I've always done this. I've always kept my insulin cold, always kept it protected and in the fridge. I've had insulin go bad because it's been left outside and gotten too warm. I've had insulin go bad because it was too close to like a furnace or a heater and it got too hot. I like my insulin cold. I've been told that cold insulin can also cause air bubbles in the tubing. I have also not experienced this issue. But I have recently started leaving my filled cartridges out for an hour or two, or even it comes with a little cap. Just capping it and like holding it in my hands for a few minutes to warm it up. But we're not going to do that today. So all of this is trash. One of the things I've noticed is that the amount of medical trash or medical waste that you create is outstanding. Alright, now we're going to get our tube. For the inset 30s that I use, the tubing comes separate. For the other straight insets, the tubing's kind of wrapped around inside of the inserter. It's vibrating saying, "Fill me." So with this one, the tubing is separate. So we're going to open the tubing. I use 18-inch tubing. Anything longer than that, and I feel like it gets in the way, and anything shorter than that, I can't do sights on the back of my arms, and I've really been enjoying that. So we take our tubing, and one step I forget to do almost all the time is threading the tubing through, oops, don't want to lose those. It won't function without these. You don't want to drop them. Threading the tubing through here is something I forget to do a lot, and I just get all gung-ho and put it on there. But you need that cap. So I put the cap through the tube, get the rest of those air bubbles out. This can be kind of like the trickiest part. It's super helpful if you can get like good lighting behind you. I've got a window kind of back behind my camera here, so I can see where my air bubbles are, and I can watch them go through the tube and make sure everything's working properly. And there we go. Okay, this is all good to go. We insert this back into our pump, press it in, lock our cap back on nice and tight, not too tight because you can crack the plastic on the pump. You'll learn that the hard way when you over tighten a battery cap and end up cracking your $5,000 insulin pump. We go back to our menu, back down to prime rewind, and we loaded our cartridge. So we're going to press load cartridge. Disconnect from yourself when you do this. You could easily overdose. Continue, and now the little piston is kind of moving up to where the cartridge is filled. When this rewinds, it says it can hold 206 units. It's a basically 200 unit cartridge. I've never been able to fill it up completely all the way. It's usually around like 178. When I do fill it up, I'm going to press continue. Now we're going to prime the tubing, get all the air bubbles out. We press go prime and hold down. Watch all the air bubbles come out. It's usually about, 10 units primed. 10 units filled, about an 18-inch tube, 9 units. We're not filling a cannula today. I have a fresh site on my arm from yesterday that Eric helped me put on. So go to fill cannula, 0 units, go. And now we are good for another 2 to 3 days, depending on, how much Easter candy I eat. So that is how you fill a insulin pump. Every time I take a bolus, or every time I get basal delivered, which is every 3 minutes, the little piston inside will turn a certain amount of times to push the syringe and deliver insulin. The end of my tubing here has a tiny little, I wouldn't call it a needle, but yeah, that's basically what it is. This clips into here. That needle goes through this little canal thing right here, through this plastic, and then into my cannula underneath my skin. Insulin isn't a shot that goes in your muscle. Actually, it hurts really bad when you accidentally hit a muscle. It's inserted into the fat right underneath the skin. It can take about 15 minutes to start absorbing, which is why pre-bolusing, basically taking your insulin 10 to 15 minutes before you eat, is super important to keep your blood sugars from going too high while or after eating. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any other questions, please put them in the comments. You're giving me tons of ideas for new videos. Insulin pumps are fantastic. I'm super grateful that you know, technology and diabetes management has come as far as it has. I've heard stories of people 50 years ago having to basically boil, you know, their glass syringes and their needles and reuse them. And, you know, glucose monitoring at home didn't even really exist back then. You know, you peed on a stick and it turned a funny color. And that told you kind of almost sort of what your blood sugar might have been 2 hours ago. So I'm super grateful for insulin pumps. They make it much easier to manage diabetes, much less painful. It doesn't mean that you have perfect control all the time. I certainly don't. It doesn't always make you healthier or make you a better diabetic. It's all up to the user and if they're going to use the tools properly and basically follow the rules that are given to them by their diabetic management team. But yeah, I like it, and I'm hoping that I get to keep pumping for a really, really long time. Thanks for watching. Thank you for watching my video. Please hit subscribe and the little bell for reminders for when I make new videos.